name is Felicia Wright, and this is the Go Rogue podcast. Do you feel stuck? Does every day feel like Groundhog's Day? Well, I'm here to tell you it's time to take charge of your life and know that you are meant for more than this. It's time to go rogue. This podcast is for people that are ready to say enough is enough and discover their new normal with entrepreneurship. Get ready because your rogue journey starts now. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Go Rogue podcast. I'm super excited because I have Robyn Eckersley with us. She is such a phenomenal woman and we are local to each other, which is so exciting. We've met in person and I love her. So before we get started, I just want to read a little bit of her bio just so you can get to know her a little bit more. And then she's going to explain all about her story and her history and what she has going on. So I'm super excited. So Robyn Eckersley is on a mission to activate and empower 1 million women to live purpose-driven lives. As an impact coach, she takes women who are struggling to grasp their role in changing the world and fitting into their busy lives, and she helps them to define their unique vision of impact and seamlessly integrate it into their personal and professional lives. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Felicia. I'm so pumped to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm really excited about this interview because we actually got to connect in person. And unfortunately, sometimes I don't get to connect with people in person. So it's just always it's always better when you meet people in person and feel their vibe and their energy. So I just want to say, you are phenomenal and you inspired me to do better after we met.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation when we got to meet. And I love what you're up to. I love your commitment to your cause. And man, we need more people. We need more women specifically like you. So thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
That's definitely the first of, I'm sure, many get-togethers that we're going to have.
Yeah. And I know we're going to get into this a little bit later, but your goal is to impact 1 million women. And after we met, I was like, I'm not doing enough.
Oh my gosh.
I'm up the ante here.
Oh, I know what you mean. Honestly, so this is mid-February that we're recording this. And I publicly stated that whole 1 million women goal at the beginning of this year. And the thing is, one of the most powerful things that we can do for ourselves when we set goals is to publicly declare them. Yes. Because we can say, to ourselves, I'm going to impact 1 million women and I'm going to change 1 million lives. And we can just keep that within our small, either just to ourselves or just with our families or spouses or, in our small community. But, at the end of the day, when you say it out loud and other people who and maybe don't know hear it, it becomes real. Whether or not they're going to check up on you and say, hey, how's that 1 million women thing coming along? Hopefully they do that because you've said something that sticks with people that's whoa, she's really about this. Mm-hmm. Or that it's I can't really go back on it now. It's real.
Put your feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's partially because it's my little personal rebellion against the whole, if I just change one life, I'm like, girl, you could change so many more lives. Let's not keep it to one life. So that was part of me rebelling against that. And then also the whole accountability part of it. I'm like, oh man, I'm saying it, so I got to be about it. So it serves multiple purposes.
Yeah. And honestly, it's powerful. I mean, we just dove on into this. We're going to get to your backstory here in a second. But when I started this podcast, I actually made a banner and said, Go Rogue podcast releasing on August something. I can't remember my release date. At that point, I didn't have a mic. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I didn't even have podcast hosting. I had nothing. But I made an announcement within 2 weeks, I had it up and running. So it was amazing. There's no backing out now. People know about it.
Totally. And if you had said, that's the thing about being specific too. You said coming August or whenever the date was. And it's it's so much more powerful when you can be very specific about it instead of at the end of the year, I'm going to do this, or hopefully by the beginning of that. It's way too vague, and there's way too much room for you to slip on by, and it's way too much room for you to just make excuses and for things to come up and for you to justify not doing it. So, I mean, the fact that it's a physical banner, that's freaking awesome, first of all. And then it had a specific, the fact that it had a date on it too, like, you know, it could be starting a business, it could be starting a podcast, it could be, you know, million women, it could be, you know, cleaning the bathroom, honestly. You know, whatever it is that you're looking to do, if you can be as specific and as clear with it and have as many people holding you accountable to it as possible, the much more statistically likely you are to actually get it done. So this like, you know, one day I'm going to quit smoking. One day I'm going to lose 10 pounds. One day I'm going to start eating right. Then you won't until you commit to it. Yeah. And that's, I mean, a lot of times we're just not honest with ourselves. But
yeah, and I think that might be us giving ourselves leeway to like fail or quit or whatever pops up. So yeah, it's like hold your feet to the fire. Like it works. It truly does work. Yeah. So let's go backwards a little bit about how you got here, because you have this amazing goal and you're going to impact so many women. I think you're going to impact more than that. But tell me a little bit about your background and what led you down this path.
Sure. Let's see. Well, I'm like, how much time do we have?
All the time.
All the time. So I like to think about it as kind of the merging of two paths that I was on. Mm-hmm. So one was the personal path and one was the professional path. Now, personally, so I'm a child of immigrants. My mom is from the UK. My dad is from Hong Kong. They came to the States in the 70s. And so I grew up in the 80s and 90s in America, in Maryland, in the suburb of DC, and trying to navigate my way. First of all, DC is a super international city. And so being surrounded by people from all cultures was very normal for me. And growing up trying to identify, like, what does it mean to be British? What does it mean to be Chinese? What does it mean to be American when everything is literally a giant melting pot? Like the description of America being a melting pot was like essentially my life growing up. Mm-hmm. Trying to figure out what that even means on a personal level. How am I supposed to behave? What values do I hold as most important to me? How am I supposed to be a good daughter? How am I supposed to be a good student? All of these expectations for me kind of felt like they were at odds. Mm-hmm. So all throughout my youth and my childhood, I was like, I don't know who I am, because I also never met anyone like me at that point. Mm-hmm. I was on this kind of like, who am I identity quest? And I had no one to really look to as a role model in that respect. So I grew up very kind of confused. I grew up really frustrated with not knowing who I am or who I'm supposed to be. And that led to a lot of self-esteem issues, a lot of self-worth issues. And then compounded on top of that, I went to university in the South at a Baptist school. And
interesting.
Listeners, if you could see Felicia's face right now. She's like, what?
Interesting.
And also even though I went to a high school that was associated with a cathedral, so it was Episcopalian, it was very liberal. It was very like, let's learn about all religions. Let's understand how different people from different faiths kind of see the world. I was like, religiously associated schools is no big deal. But I had never come across the Baptist faith, which takes it much more seriously, right? Yes. And so, plus being in the South, and which was another like culture shock completely. Mm-hmm. I was completely not accepted there. I was called a Yankee. I was like, people still call people Yankees these days?
That's a thing?
Yeah. I'm like, what? So I was, this random girl from the North, from a suburb of DC. People were asking me if I have been shot and if am I in a gang? And really? I'm like, what kind of TV shows are you watching? Like, no, I'm not in a gang, and no, I have not been shot, and no, I don't go to church either. And so people were like, oh my gosh, like,
that's a big deal.
You're going to hell. Yeah. And I want to save your soul. And I was like, can I just get an education? That's all I'm for. I'd like to keep my soul.
Yeah.
Can you just let me do my thing? And it got to the point so much where I was not accepted by the majority of the student body. I found actually a much stronger sense of community among the Black population of the students there. And so I was like, I could find shared experiences of not being welcome, not being included. And that absolutely had an impression on the next few years of my life as well. So now I have like 4 cultures going on inside of me. Like, I don't know who I am or what's going on.
But there's beauty in that. Like, I truly believe that going to a school, like I taught in a predominantly Hispanic and African American school, but I love being at schools where all cultures are represented because there's so many different perspectives, like the way you see things. Like my husband's Caucasian, and some of the conversations we have, I'm just like, you think what now? Like, and it's just like my way of thinking is just so foreign to him. But I think there's beauty in that, and kids coming together that look like everybody, look ways, and then they can learn from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very interesting from like a population study kind of, observation, where I go from a very like international community, I guess, from birth until high school, and then going to a community in the South where it is very specifically, you are either white or you are either Black, and you do not hang out with each other and you do not basically associate with each other. But everyone is super religious, so you have that in common. But so I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. I didn't know, like, so socially, it was very difficult for me to make ties. And then that kind of brings us back to like the professional track of this path of confusion. Whereas something that also fed into my having a pretty not great college experience was the fact that I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I thought that you deciding your major in college was supposed to dictate what the rest of your life looks like, your working life.
Yeah.
So I had 3 majors in 3 years. Yep.
How on earth did you do that? Like, that's insane. Like, for me.
Yeah. It was insane for me too. Because the way that you make decisions, this is so illustrative of how people make decisions, because my first major was accounting. And I made that decision because I was like, accountants make good money and they have stable jobs, and this seems like a smart decision.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose it. It's like a very logical decision. Yeah. And then I was like, oh my gosh, if I sit behind a desk and crunch numbers all day, like I will go insane. I will go totally insane. So that wasn't for me and my personality. So I switched tracks and I'm like, okay, biology. I'm super fascinated by science, by biology, by genetics, all of that good stuff. But so I chose the whole, this is something I'm interested in path.
Okay.
But career-wise, I was like, what do biologists even do? Like, I think they fight for grant funding all the time, and that sounds super stressful. And at the time when I was in school, they had just cloned Dolly the sheep. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that.
Yeah. And so now there's a layer not only of funding, but also of ethics, saying, just because you can do something scientifically, whatever, should you? Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't even like decide who I am. How can I decide anything about, the ethics and morality behind science? And so I started to shy away from that too. And then I started to, our conversation about different groups of people and how we all interact and see the world differently. My third major was sociology.
Okay.
So like, okay, this is really cool. Like how people interact, how different communities support one another, what different values they hold, how they move through the world. That I can get behind. And that was something that I was really interested in my junior year. Unfortunately, my whole understanding of what life was about and what I was about had had come to a head in terms of I had a lot of depression. And so at that time I had checked myself into therapy and all that stuff. And I was super depressed. I was like, what's the point of all of this? Because I don't know what I'm doing. And so I left because I wasn't going to school. I wasn't doing my homework. And it was a very competitive university. And I was like, my justification was that I shouldn't be taking up a space in the student body when so many other people apply and they don't get in, and they would take advantage of this much more than I am. So I was like, I need to leave. I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. Please give my spot to someone else who is going to take advantage of the education. Because it was a great school, and someone else could use that experience better than I was at the time.
Yeah.
So when I left school, I decided to work for a little bit because I wanted to be a contributing member of society and figure out what the heck I'm doing with my life.
I know. We all feel that way. What are we doing?
I feel like we're always asking that question, no matter how old you are.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so, of course, my parents were like, excuse me, what are you doing? It's junior year. You have one more year. Can you just stick it out for your bachelor's? And I was like, no, it's not right. Like, I can't do this. So I left, and then I ended up finishing at the University of Maryland in College Park, which I absolutely adored. And I finished with a Chinese language, literature, and culture degree because in the background of all these majors, I had been racking up the Chinese credits, essentially, like course credits.
Wow.
Yeah. And at that point, when I went back to school in Maryland, I was like, I just need this degree because no one is hiring me because I don't have a bachelor's. So let me get a bachelor's in literally anything right now, just so I can work. So it was more a strategic reason for graduating rather than like, oh, I found my passion. And so after that,
I completely agree with that. Like, I understand like why you would do that. And I would have done the exact same thing. But I think I almost want to highlight like you hopping from degree to degree. Well, you didn't finish it, but like major to major, that's what I'm looking for. And I think people need to realize more that we don't have it all figured out when we're 18, 19, 20. 30, 40, we don't have it all figured out. And when we're so young trying to make that decision, it's a lot to put on a child, really, because even myself, I made some of the same decisions. It's like, well, I'll go into engineering because it makes good money and it's stable. I went down that same path too. So I think it's important to really highlight that because I know we're not the only two that went through that.
Yeah.
Because I left in my junior year as well.
Oh, did you? Oh, I didn't know that.
And then I went back and finished my teaching degree. But I started out in engineering. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I think one of the biggest tragedies that I see in women who are of older generations are that they didn't give themselves that permission to change courses.
Yeah.
Like to switch direction and say, this isn't working for me in whatever way. Maybe it's not fulfilling. Maybe it's not, allowing you to live the life that you want, but they stick it out because they either think it's too late to change or to just be grateful for what you have. Just suck it up. Many people are suffering with like way worse circumstances than you. So I should just be grateful for this like semi-unfulfilling life that I have now. And it's just like, it's such a tragedy to miss out, right?
And honestly, that story, your story is a testament to how strong you were, even as an 18, 19, 20-year-old, because you had the strength and the courage to say like, no, like this isn't for me, I'm leaving. And that's really hard to do. It's so hard to do, especially with parents. Like, I know my parents are like, they would have been the same way. It's like, girl, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, but I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The pressure from wanting to make the people who are most important in your life proud is enormous. Whether the people in your life are being overt about it, being like, no, you need to do this, or I think you're totally wrong, or I think you're totally bonkers, Or if they're kind of like, I'll support you in whatever decision you make, but they're like, you can tell that they're like freaked out for you. That pressure that we put on ourselves because we want to make the people in our lives happy and proud and feel safe when we don't know what the heck we're doing in the first place.
Yeah.
It's hard to, and that's kind of like when my relationships with the people close in my life started to break down as well. So like, I felt like I couldn't tell people what I was doing in my life and I couldn't justify my decisions because to me, I kind of didn't know what I was doing either. Well, 100% didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But sometimes in order for us to, I think, step out and find the right path, we have to just first leave the path that we're on. We don't know what might be on the other side, but it's okay to take those first steps, even when you don't know necessarily what direction you're going on. It's okay to do that.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you said that because like we all need to hear it, even myself included, after taking some leaps, but it's still, I need to constantly tell myself that because we all think it's just like, well, just, suck it up.
Yeah.
Together, do what you're supposed to do, but that's just not the right answer.
Yeah. I mean, this whole like mentality of, I think it's still quite strong today, but I think it might be dying out a little bit, is that you made your bed in it, now you better lie in it kind of approach is like, it's doing everybody a disservice because that person who's unhappy with the bed that they chose could be better serving society in some other way. If you just give them permission and they just give themselves permission to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be, let's say, an engineer, or I don't want to be a biologist, or I don't want to do this stuff that my degree that I only got because society is telling me I have to have a degree, like isn't cutting it for me. But you know what? I would really love to learn more about nutrition. I'd really love to learn more about teaching, helping other people. And for us to box people in because of choices they made with information that they had at the time and like limited exposure to resources, like it's just a shame because so many people miss out on a personal level of personal fulfillment and achievement. But societally, we could all benefit from people being, in the place that they're best suited and they're happiest in. The teacher who's forced to show up in a classroom and she's miserable all day is not, serving kids as best as someone who's like, this is my life, I love it, and it's like, let it happen. It's okay. Let people choose. Let people live. God.
I completely agree with you. It's like people need to show up the way they are passionate to show up. So let me take you back to, so now you're graduated now.
Yes.
And are all your dreams, have they all been fulfilled at this point? Where did you go from there?
Oh my gosh. It went from I'm graduated, like dream come true, to like total nightmare very quickly, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah. So at the time I was still, I was like, all right, check mark, got the degree. Now people like think I'm worth something and that can pay me for work. Yeah. But I was still on this space of like, I don't know what I'm doing in this life. I don't, I'm just trying to make it. I'm just trying to hustle and get money and pay bills. And that was my goal, essentially, just very short-term thinking. And I ended up in a very abusive relationship. I was attracting people who were taking leadership of the relationship because I didn't know how to be a leader personally, like for myself or in a relationship or in most circumstances. I was just trying to get by, just in life in general.
Yeah.
And and so it got to the point where it was verbally, emotionally, physically very abusive. I became very isolated from all the people who I'd been trying to, impress with all of these crazy decisions in the first place. And at that point, I was with this person for over 4 years. It was about 5 years when I finally
significant relationship. That's a long time.
Yeah. And it was half of my 20s. And when you're in your 20s, you're figuring out, you're really figuring out who you are and who you are not, and what do you like, what do you not like, all that good stuff. It's a really developmental stage for people, I think. And I was kind of in this situation where I had plateaued. I had totally settled and accepted my circumstances as this is as good as it's going to get for me.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to be arguing all the time. I'm going to be covering up bruises all the time. I'm just going to be trying to get by. And this is my life now. And again, why should I complain when millions of other women around the world have it way worse than me? Human trafficking is a thing. Modern day slavery is a thing. Like, people are killed every single day. Like, there are much worse circumstances. This is how I justified it than me being in this relationship. Why should I be so selfish, right? To want something more. So that was kind of the script that was playing in my mind.
Wow. How did you get past that? Like, what was the catalyst to push you? Because there's always be something, like, to push people out of, like, that narrative that you're playing over and over in your head, where it just becomes who you are. So there's typically a catalyst of, like, a shove off the cliff.
Yeah.
Like, do something different.
Mm-hmm.
What was it?
Especially with something so serious as that. And when you are in that victim mindset of nothing's in my control, I can't help my circumstances, the world just like happens around me. When you've given up all power, then it takes a lot for you to get out of that mentality. So whether it's, you're stuck in a job that you hate, or you're stuck in a relationship you hate, it's the same processes that are happening inside. So for me, I don't know the exact moment it was, but I had this kind of aha realization of, oh my gosh, I'm living my future right now. This is all that life is going to be for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being like, okay, there's never going to be a time that I'm not working multiple jobs to pay for our lifestyle. I'm never going to live in a safe environment because I keep accepting this person back into my life. I keep enabling them, and I'm acting as a crutch for them to get the help that they need to be a functional, like, healthy human being.
Yeah.
And by me staying here, I know, because I've lived it for the past 5 years, that every day going forward is going to be the same day over and over again. It's going to be like Groundhog Day.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, it was a horrible realization. Like, I have no future. This is it. This is absolutely it. And every other line had been crossed. Like, every line in a relationship had been crossed. And I had, up to that point, justified it all, or explained it all, or made excuses for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, the idea of this is all your life is ever going to be was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, no. This person has done, said, and taken everything from me at this point. They're not going to take my future. Wow. And that's the day when I started to put a plan into place, saying, okay, I'm going to choose this date. Remember, like, getting super specific. This is going to be the date that I leave. This is how it's going to happen. I have no idea what else is going to happen, what's going to be on the other side, but I have to get out of this one step at a time. And so I reached out to a couple of my sorority sisters who I had not spoken with in a while. And they were like, I asked if I could just crash on their couch.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know how long I'm going to be there. And they were like, of course, 1,000,000%. We've been waiting for you, essentially, to, like, be ready to leave.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was very, I'm extremely grateful to them. And like I knew that things were going to get worse before they got better, because in situations like this, usually someone has a very serious temper. Usually someone has a very difficult way of processing emotions that they don't like to feel. So, like, feeling out of control, feeling angry, feeling confused, that type of person, like, combined with volatility, is totally unpredictable.
Yes.
I was like, okay, I just have to brace myself, but I've been through worse. So let's see what happens. And yeah, I left that weekend. I think it was like 2 weeks after that decision. So it was pretty quick, but
that was your date, like 2 weeks later.
I was like, okay, this is the date. I know he's going to be out of town for work. So I'm just going to throw whatever I can in the car and leave as soon as he's far enough out of town. And then it was slowly putting the pieces of my life back together. Yes, like I heard through friends that like this person ended up going to jail, that he, he started drinking all the time, started getting fights all the time. And I'm like, I kind of expected it, but this is the right decision for both of us, because he kind of needs to hit rock bottom too, for him to realize he needs help.
Yeah.
And I definitely need to start over. And from there, the pendulum swung the other way, where I went no freedom and no independence or anything, to being like, freedom, like I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to party and I'm just going to live my life and make up for lost time. And at that point I was really angry. Honestly, I had a lot of anger issues because of that relationship. I really resented that relationship and that person. And I decided that the best way to get through it was just to party and to work hard, play hard, essentially. Threw myself into my work, threw myself into socializing, and was like, going life at 100 miles an hour, essentially. And then I met my husband, my now husband, and he met me when I was a hot mess.
You would probably just take off the mess part. I met her. She was hot.
It was so funny because it was like, at that point I was anti-relationship. I was like, relationships trap you. You can't make any decisions on your own. And he was like pie in the sky, like, it's going to be great. We should date. I'm like we're best friends. He and I had been best friends for a long time. And all of a sudden we started like being interested romantically in each other. And we thought it was super weird. And I was like, you're my friend. I should not. Yeah. And he was like, no, trust me, we should try this. It's going to be amazing. I'm like, well, this is going to go down in flames. And I'm going to tell you, I told you so. I'm going to be really mad at you because now I will have lost a friend. But he and I decided we're done with the East Coast. Let's just start over in California and figure it out. Again, one right step in the right direction, figure out the rest on the way. And he was very patient with me as I healed, essentially, as I understood how to process my own emotions and go through that healing process. And he's been by my side ever since. And he's a super cutie. He's a great guy, obviously. And
oh, that's great.
Yeah, we ended up working in the tech industry in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And that kind of professional, what am I doing with my life thing had still not been resolved. Personally, I was on the right track. Professionally, I was still like, I want my work to matter in the world, and the work that I'm doing, I feel like doesn't really make a difference in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm not going to go work for, the United Nations. What can I do in the meantime? And at that point we had moved to Vegas. I'm really fast forwarding now.
Yeah.
And we were planning our wedding. It was 2015. And I had split from my last company because I was like, I can't do this. I don't like working for you. You don't like me working for you anymore. So this is a natural break was coming. And then I was like, okay, now what? Like I still have no idea who I am or what I'm doing. And this was late 20s. I hadn't turned 30 yet. And so that's when I like to say serendipitously, but I think the universe was like playing a trick on me when I got a Groupon here in Las Vegas for 2-for-1 services at a local spa that I like to go to. It's like, let me go get my massage and let me see what else they offer, thinking I was going to get a facial or something. They had a life coach on staff. And I was like, what the heck is a life coach? Like, that sounds like a fake, that sounds like a fake job. That's not even real.
I love this story, by the way.
It's like, I still hadn't, personal development hadn't really kicked in at that point. So it's still really cynical and really like, that sounds like not even, that sounds like a trendy fake job person that like a bored Beverly Hills housewife would hire. Like, oh, I have a life coach now. And so I was like, okay, well, it's free. I already got my massage. I'm feeling pretty good. Let's go see this life coach and see what she's about. And I met her and we sat down and I'm talking to her about the crossroads that I'm at with my job. Do I continue being a project manager somewhere? Because that's what my resume says to the world I am. Or do I figure out something where I can help women who have been in my shoes, who have walked parallel paths? Maybe they've come through a personal challenge. Maybe they're domestic violence survivors, something where they're looking to reinvent themselves. How do I do that? Because I don't want to go back to school to be a therapist. I don't want to be a psychologist. I know I can help people now. I just don't know how to do it or how to reach them. And so through our coaching session, we got to a point where she was like, it kind of sounds like you want to do what I do. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't know what we're doing here.
What's happening? I'm not a Beverly Hills housewife right now.
Yeah. Like, I don't know about like working in a spa. Like, I don't get it. And she's like, no, it sounds like you want to be a coach. Look into it. Here's some information about it. And she sent me on my way with some homework to research coaching schools. And she's like, it's much more affordable than like going back to school to become a psychiatrist or something. And much less time. And it can really give you some skills that you might resonate with. So I did it. I went on my merry way being like, I don't know about that. Like, what is this even thing? But I'll Google it anyway.
Why not?
Yeah. What else am I doing with my life at this point? And so I found a program that really caught my attention and I was very interested in it. Fast forward, I went through the program. It was 7 months long. It was with a school called IPEC. It was amazing. And I was like, yeah, like I can really use this training to help people.
Yeah.
And I want to run my own business. Ta-da! Something else I've never done.
That's awesome. Like, I think that was kind of a situation of the universe pushing you gently, shoving maybe into what you needed to be doing and how you should be helping other people. Because sometimes like we just can't get there. And I'm learning through what I'm going through right now. It's like, I think I went through some stuff to get to where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to appreciate that stuff, as even though in the moment it feels like garbage. It's like, what is happening? You know, like, I don't understand. But I think we do have to go through some of that hard stuff to get to where we need to be. So that's awesome. So tell us about how through your coaching business, now you're trying to impact 1 million women. Tell us more about that, because we want to know.
Yes. The interesting thing is that when I first started coaching as a business, I started out as a self-care coach.
Okay.
And because self-care is something that these women that I wanted to help, that was at the core for a lot of them, for how they got into situations like mine and how they stay in this sense of I'm powerless mentality and existence. The challenge was, though, that I was attracting clients who didn't want to change. They just wanted to sit and wallow and complain and get it off their chest each week and then come back and tell me the same story over and over again, but not take any action. So for me, that still wasn't hitting the mark. I was like, you know, I'm a sounding board at this point, but I'm not really helping them to make massive changes in their life, which is fine because everyone, you know, walks different paths at different rates. So, you know, those women needed to be there right then.
Yeah.
I knew that I could better serve with women who are ready to take action. And so for me, I was like, okay, so running my own business means I can choose who I want to work with, and I can choose kind of to what ends these people are looking to achieve, if that makes any sense. But essentially, you know, you have full reign over who you decide. Yeah, every decision and who you decide to work with and what kind of change you want to affect in the world through your business. And so for me, I was like, there's women out there who are like me, who want to make a difference, but believe that they can't really because they're not, doctor, lawyer, president, whatever.
Yeah.
In these positions, these like very specific careers. But society is the way that it is because of how we all live. And so if we can incrementally make adjustments in our life that are in line with who we aspire to be, that's how we change the world. That's how we make ripples of impact, not just how we behave, but who we inspire to behave differently as well. So they can say, wow, she's really committed to being compassionate. She's very committed to the environment. And it's not easy and it's not a traditional life that she's living, but man, she's doing it. Maybe I can do something too.
Yeah.
So there's power in being a role model and sticking to what you believe in, but it all starts with knowing what you believe in the first place. So I decided that we are all worth more than just living up to generalized expectations. You go to school, you get married, you have kids, you got a house, you got a white picket fence and a dog and a cat. and that's supposed to be kind of the mindset. Yeah. You're supposed to be happy. And that's supposed to be good enough. And I'm like, that's not good enough literally for anybody, whether they admit it or not. That might contribute to happiness, of course, relationships, kids, all that stuff can contribute to happiness. But what do you want to do in this world? Like, what kind of mark do you want to make? And that's just a conversation that people just generally are not having. So I decided that, okay, my business is not just going to be coaching individual women through small scale transformations. This is to a larger end. And my vision is that these are what I'm working in now are the building blocks for a massive foundation where whatever you're looking to transform in your life, if you need to reinvent, or in the future, if your job got replaced by robots and you don't know what the heck you're doing now because your job is now obsolete. If you need to reinvent, if you need to start over, if you need to transform, come on in. The Robyn Eckersley Institute is here to serve you.
Yes. That's amazing. And like the juicy nugget that you just said a little bit ago is that women need to incrementally change and then they can have ripples from that. And the reason why I say that's the juicy nugget is because we all think it's going to happen overnight, myself included. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I can change everything in a night, but it really is a journey. And we have to be comfortable being on that journey and changing ourselves first before we can change other people. Yes. So I really like that you said that, because that's what we need to hear. That's what we need to strive towards. Just like make those small changes one at a time, because we can't do it overnight, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, as much as we want that kind of quick, I'm amazing now and I'm even more amazing than I was yesterday.
Yes.
Then, that experience, if that happened that way, can you imagine the lessons we would miss out on learning, by struggling through it day by day and forming new habits and being very intentional about the decisions we make, which can get super tiring. Am I purchasing some food that's in line with my values? God, can I just have a burger?
Yeah.
When you decide you want to be about something, walking the talk can be exhausting, but it's worth it if you've chosen something that truly represents who you want to be and the legacy that you want to be leaving behind you. But man, it's not easy. Yeah.
It is so difficult. So through this process of helping women identify what they stand for, what is the first question that you have your clients ask themselves? Because even just listening to you, I'm like, do I even know that? I'm not so sure. I know what I want to do and what I'm trying to accomplish and who I want to help, but it's do I know what I stand for? So how do you help your clients get there?
Yeah. So that, depending on what kind of work they've already done before seeing me, that can be like months. That can be just like a session of like, oh, I have a vague idea, but I've never articulated it before. I've never actually put it into a sentence before.
Yeah.
It depends on where they're coming from, but essentially it's digging into why they make the decisions they do, why they live the life that they, in the way that they do, and is that truly in line with who they believe they are and who they believe they want to be in the future. The idea of what do you stand for is kind of like a, it's a type of line that's in like songs and movies and comics and like very heroic kind of thinking. And, the worst thing I can think of is that we're all aspiring to be average. And I don't think that's the case at all.
No.
And the joke is that we're all trying to be unique, just like everybody else. But the idea of knowing what matters to you most, and in those terms, I'm thinking of your core values. What values are actually yours? And do you want to carry those values forward? Because a lot of times our values are passed down from our parents, from the people we're around. Are they your values, or are you just kind of walking and living those values because everyone else is around you? And is there something larger than yourself that you want to choose to be in service of? And people might translate that into like, oh, I live in service of God. I live in service of, spreading the good word, whatever, however that's packaged. But at the end of the day, what is it that truly is your mark that you're leaving? If someone were to say, I just met this woman, Felicia, and she's about X, Y, and Z. Does what she say about you and what you represent truly match with the impression you're trying to leave, with the mark that you're trying to leave on someone? Are you trying to leave people that you meet feeling empowered? Are you looking to give them a message of hope, give them a message of strength? Are you looking to help them access their creativity? What is it about you that you're like, that trail of fairy dust behind you that you leave? What does it look like? What does it sound like? And how can that be in service of us being a better just species overall, a better society overall? And it's not stuff that we talk about.
No.
But, I mean, it's this, we get to the same core, or I get to the same core with my clients through a series of different approaches, depending on where they're coming from. And that could be one-on-one coaching, where we're sitting down and we're having a conversation. We're peeling back the layers, really getting in that soul. Or maybe it's them at my Design Your Why workshop, which is just 2 hours, and we go through a workbook together that I put together, 5 different exercises, and they start to know themselves at a deeper level. So there's a bunch of different paths, but all roads lead to Rome. So once we understand that why, that core of who you are, then we can understand, okay, how do you walk this talk? How do you live this why personally, professionally, financially, emotionally, like all of these different outlets? It's kind of like, once you have your why, then you can move the ball and set all these like dominoes off into effect gradually throughout your life, step by step.
This, honestly, I haven't heard any other coach talk about this. And to be honest, I think this is the most important. And here's why. Because we all want to leave a legacy to our family and all that, but we never really sit down and sit with it and figure out how we're even doing that. Like we all have this idea of we're going to leave a legacy to our family, but it's like, do we even know how? Do we even know how we're going to go about doing that? What that even looks like? So what you're saying is like, you're identifying all of that. And like you said, peeling back those crusty layers and seeing what's underneath.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. And honestly, I know I'm going to one of your Design Your Why workshops because my friend has sung your praises for months to me. Seriously, months. And she's like, Robyn's amazing. You need to talk to Robyn. You need to meet Robyn. I'm like, okay, I'm going to meet this lady, Robyn. And then we ran into each other. And I was like, I know you, but I don't know you.
Yes.
So next workshop, I will be there because I've heard nothing but fabulous things about your workshop. And
Awesome.
even just hearing you talk, it's like, that's something I need to get in tune with, like go deeper and figure out my legacy. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy that resonates with you. It's a cool process to start to realize like, oh my gosh, this is why I am the way I am. And this is what's truly important to me. And this is what I want to do with it going forward.
Yeah.
Now, it's really interesting. Like the term legacy is so interesting because it's like in our society right now, legacy means things like maybe it's a thing that you leave behind, or maybe it's financially like, whatever you give your kids when you pass away, or it's something big that you've created, like a body of work or something. And one of my attendees in a past Design Your Why workshop, she was like, I don't have any kids and I'm not going to have any kids. I have no legacy. And it's so interesting to think of how people interpret their legacy, that it can only be through a certain channel. Maybe it's the children that you have and the lives that they lead, or the money that you leave behind, or something you create. But when we work on legacy, we take into account the fact that we affect so many people in the world that we will never meet, or that we will never know that we've affected them. We always hear these stories of that one thing you said to me, like back in the 80s. I've never forgotten that.
Yeah.
You might never know that, like, that was a big deal to them.
Yeah. And it's like, you just said it offhandedly. Like, wait, I said what now?
Yeah, exactly. So if you think about that, like on a day-to-day basis, virtually, digitally, in person, so many different ways of us interacting with other people, we're impacting them in a way. And so there's a huge opportunity for us to be very intentional about how we move through the world, because whether we like it or not, we are affecting people. We are impacting people. So let's have it on our terms, right? Let's make it about something that matters,
Yeah, that's perfect. Like, I think we just all need to take more time to sit with that kind of stuff, because we're all just, grinding out the day, and then the next day comes. But like for me, when I sit down to meditate, it really makes me stop and pause and then reset, really. Like I need the reset. So I think I love that you said that. So I'm going to wrap it up here, but I have one more question for you, because this has been phenomenal. And I know people are going to want to reach out to you as well. But before I hop off, I just want to ask you, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give to a woman that might be struggling, that wants to start her rogue journey, no matter what that looks like, but doesn't know what to do? What would you tell her?
Oh, that's a good one. Two things I would tell her. Some of the best advice I ever, I want to say I ever never received, was to take the advice you would give your best friend or your sister. Whatever you would tell her to do, since you're coming from a place of having her best interest in heart, take that advice for yourself. Because a lot of times we're willing to, encourage people to do great things for themselves, but we're not willing to put ourselves in our best position or help ourselves and support ourselves in the way that we need to. So take the advice you would give your own best friend. And then 2, take time to explore what matters most to you in this world. So once you can put that at the core, all the actions that follow, how you spend your money, how you show up to work, what kind of job do you take, what kind of spouse do you choose, when all of that, when you have that understanding of what matters most to you in this world, physically, soulfully, conceptually, then the decisions that you make going forward are coming from this really powerful place of like a solid foundation that truly represents you, instead of, filling in, getting all these things, like spouse, job, house, whatever, that now you're trying to shoehorn into what matters most to you. So when we work from the inside out, it's the most powerful thing. So understand, what matters most, and then take the advice that you would give your best friend.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really good advice. I never thought about it, but when you said it, like the advice I would give my best friend, it's like, yeah, sometimes I don't take my own advice.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's so true. It's like, oh yeah, you should go for the promotion. I'm not going to do it because, I have all these excuses, but
yeah,
you're amazing. Take your own advice, girl. You should go for that promotion too.
Thank you so much, Robyn, for being on the podcast. Really quickly, can you tell everybody where they can follow you and cyberstalk you? And then, of course, it's all going to be in the show notes. So if you're driving, don't get out a pen and paper.
Yes.
But tell us where we can find you.
Sure. So I'm all over Facebook and Instagram. Mm-hmm. Instagram, I'm at robyn.coach. And it's Robyn with a Y, by the way. And my website is www.robyn.coach instead of .com. It is just .coach.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a domain until I set up my website a bunch of years ago. And I was like, this is a thing? Yes, I'm taking it.
That's perfect because like when you search .coms, like your name will be taken and stuff. But I think that's awesome. That's
yeah, it's cool because funny enough, when I got married, I changed my name to Eckersley. Uh-huh. There's another Robyn Eckersley out there, and she's a very distinguished professor of like human history or something in Australia. Oh. I'm gonna let her, have the Robyn Eckersley, I think .com domain. But yeah, if you want to reach out to me, I'm at robyn.coach on Instagram and my website, and then Facebook, I am Robyn Eckersley Coaching.
Okay.
But I'm all over the place.
Awesome. And I'll put that in the show notes so nobody has to memorize it. But I'm definitely going to remember your domain because it's .coach, not .com. Mm-hmm. So it's perfect.
So easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Robyn, for being on the podcast. That was amazing. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us because it needs to be heard, to be honest.
Felicia, thank you so much. Thank you for holding the space for this conversation, which I thoroughly enjoyed being here with you. And thank you for sharing the stories of other women who have gone rogue. I mean, the more that we normalize going rogue, the more happy and fulfilled we're going to be as a population. So thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, no problem. So thank you so much for listening to the Go Rogue podcast, and definitely go check out Robyn because she is phenomenal. Trust me, I've met her in person. I'm not just blowing smoke up your tush. She's amazing. So definitely go out there, be brave, go rogue, and take some serious action because we are in your corner.